appreciate you.
We do too.
Y'all ready?
Well, she might not be ready, so
What you gotta do? Like the Lane Road, we don't do anybody who visit the neighbors come out and go to my sister's house.
What do we even do that?
That's fine.
See if I can find what, there, something.
Morning, everyone. Friday, August 5th, 22, 10 a.m. Meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to ask Mr. DuPont to say the pledge and Mr. Scott to say the prayer.
Please stand and face the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recite the Lord's Prayer. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Amen.
Before we move on to item number 3, we have a green card, and we'll go ahead and try to take care of this. Mr. Clayton Davis, I think running for Court of Appeal.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
I have communicated with most of you one way or the other, left a message or sent you an email just to introduce myself. 27 years practicing law in Calcasieu Parish in southwest Louisiana and other states. And then decided I wanted to get on the bench. So I came from the private sector, and now I'm in the public sector, which is kind of a shock sometimes, but we try to get things done. I did try my first jury trial right over there, represented McCall Crew Boats. I was defending them. Harmon Bork was the plaintiff, and Raleigh Newman represented him. I don't know if any of y'all knew Raleigh Newman, but it was quite a show. Anyway, I'm running for the Court of Appeal. I've been on the district court for 14 years, and I'm ready to take it to the Court of Appeal. So I'm just introducing myself and plan to come back to meet everyone as much as I can. Thank you all.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll move to item 3, 2021 audit financial statements. Hey, Corey. How you doing?
Good. Yes, I'll be very brief this morning. We did do the audit for the December 31st, 21 year. I think the blue books are in front of you. I'm not going to go over any pages in those, just let you know that the two most important pages are page 14, which is the balance sheet. Page 16 is the revenues and expenditures. That's the two most important pages if you want to take a look at that. So it is a clean report. It's clean opinion. There's no findings, no reportable conditions. Kayla and her staff do a great job for the police jury, and certainly the report reflects that. Just a couple items to mention to you guys for the year. In the unrestricted fund, which is basically the general fund, road and bridge, garbage, for the year, they had a loss of $600,000 combined in there. If you look at your unrestricted fund balance, the fund balance is about 210% of your annual operating expenditures. As a rule of thumb, if you're at 50%, you're considered in a good financial shape. So certainly the police jury is sitting in a strong financial shape. That's the quick of it. We're certainly available anytime. If any of you guys have any questions, give us a call, please. We certainly appreciate the business.
Sounds good. Thank you, Cole.
Any questions? Thank you, Corey. We'll move to item number 4, Grand Lake Rec and Big Lake Ball Field update.
Okay, so we had submitted to FEMA for APW for replacement of the fence and the lights at the Big Lake Ball Field. Right now, it is going through the approval process, but it doesn't look like the timing of the funding is going to be before we need to start the work to have the field ready for the February, which is when they start practicing. So what we're gonna ask you today after the finance meeting is to allocate about $250,000 to the Big Lake Ball Field to replace the fence and the lights. Now, this is all a FEMA PW. Reimbursement will come, but it could be 6 months, it could be 6 years. We don't really know. So this is just, this is a capital project funding out of your $2 million pot of your budget, just to repair this. And then if you get reimbursed, when you get reimbursed, then it'll offset your expenses. But this is just something that we have a lot of little league teams that play out there. They've went to almost 2 years now without having a place to practice. We had to put light plants out there for them to practice after hours, after dark. So we're asking for that allocation. And I would ask for you to do that during the finance meeting.
Is that on the island? That's on the
It's on the island.
Yeah. Has FEMA looked at it? And
Yes.
give a PW on it?
It is on the damage inventory, and it is going through the obligation process. There's no reason why it shouldn't be obligated. It's an uninsured loss, so it's eligible. It's just the timing of the obligation is not going to be soon enough or expedient enough to fix it for this softball season.
Yeah, we want to
And-
get it started, so we got it.
Yeah.
When we need it.
I got a bunch of calls on that from Sarah.
Right. Well, all of the South Cameron area kids and Grand Lake kids play through the Little League, both girls and boys through that league. They all practice there. So right now, they just don't have anywhere to practice.
We're gonna do some dirt work too, right, with that?
Yes, so we were going to do that. We're going to haul in sand, reshape the infield and the outfield so it drains better, because right now it holds water in the outfield, so that they're unable to cut the outfield because it's wet. So we're going to build it up, shape it to where it drains, put some infrastructure in there to keep it dry, and then put the fence around it and put the lights back up.
We're gonna buy sand to do this?
We're either going, it depends. Depends on what the field dirt looks like out of the pond, the 80-acre pond that we're pumping out. We'll use some of that field dirt, but for the top layer, we're probably gonna have to pull some sand in.
The red
Just
sand.
depends on yeah. Especially for the infield. The outfield, we're gonna try to use some of our existing field material, but if it's not a good quality, we might have to purchase some field dirt. But we wanna fix it the right way, and we wanna make it better for all of the youth that are
That's
using
two
the
fields
field.
there, or just one?
Three.
Three, okay, yeah.
Now, the South Cameron little kids still use the Cameron Rec, and they still practice there. They use that field after the end of South Cameron's softball season. But most of the boy little leaguers practice at Grand Lake. And they just started a fast pitch team.
Is this
out of
on the
Grand Lake.
agenda already, or there's something we need to add?
This is something we'll need to add, and we can ask for it at the finance meeting. We'll add it to that agenda for an allocation if you guys are in agreement.
Everybody says carry forward?
Yeah.
Okay. So the
Thank you.
goal is to have it ready for February. If anybody's asking, all the coaches, they'll have the field ready.
What about the rec center? Did you say anything about that yet?
Have not said anything about the rec center. We are still trying to get FEMA to deem the replacement called, repair versus replacement is essentially what it is. And we're trying to demonstrate to FEMA that it is a benefit, cost analysis is greater to just replace the entire building than to go fix the 2 existing buildings. So it's going through the approval process right now. There are a lot of moving parts for that, but the ball is in FEMA's court. We have submitted everything that we needed to submit to them, and it's just going through the approval process. And they're gonna, if they approve it, then we'll tear the 2 buildings down that are there and build a new one. If they do not approve it, we always have the option to appeal it, which we'll bring that to you guys. And then if you don't want to appeal it, then we'll just have to fix what's there.
So it didn't have any insurance funds?
It did. But what we're doing, it is insured, but what FEMA will do a lot of times, if you can demonstrate that because of the building is so outdated, to bring it up to current codes, it's gonna cost so much money to bring it up. You don't wanna put $3 million to bring those two buildings up to code and fix it when you can just build a brand new one already maybe for $2 million. So that's what we're trying to get approved. And those are just hypothetical numbers. I don't know if that's what's gonna cost that. I just try to use round numbers, but that's what we're trying to get approved.
Okay. Any more questions?
Nope.
Thank you, Katie. Number 5, FFA Road, Hackberry update.
The road construction is about 90% complete. They were working on the drainage, on the east side of the road, reshaping it. And we're waiting on the architect to, get us some drainage plans for the west side of the road. There used to be a subsurface drainage along the road right away, with the old ag shop, and, the pipes were filling in, and they decided to remove them in the process of, removing the ag shop. And I got out there, looked at the plans. They're supposed to be still there as per the plans, but they haven't updated the permit or updated any drainage plans. So I made that part of their requirements to let us know what they're gonna do. We can't remove drainage from a public right of way, so.
Why did they remove it?
They said they were collapsing and full of silt and dirt. And I was like, it doesn't matter. Nobody had called us to tell us to come clean these pipes. And I've got photos. I don't believe they were that far off damaged. So I basically told the architect that we need to get this replaced or some form of drainage approved in here before we're gonna accept the roadway.
At their cost, because those covers was not falling in. I don't care what they say. I promise you, I live right there.
Yes, sir. And I agree. And we made it in a statement last week in the construction meeting last Thursday.
Okay.
But the road base, the road has been re-rocked and rebuilt, and is available for use for the school starting next week. So that way there's no blowouts or anything. We'll probably next summer, as soon as we can allocate some money, we'll let the road set up, we can regrade it, and we're gonna re-asphalt the road at a later date. We're gonna let the school use the aggregate road right now to go ahead and let it pack, let the road set up.
Why are we having to come up with more money when it's their problem?
This is all being covered by the school board, I believe, at this point. We were asked to assist with it, and provide materials, and that's where we went. I do not believe there was a bond issued on this road because of a school board project, and this is where, that's a subject for another meeting, I guess.
I want to find out if it's the architect's problem or our problem. Because they tend to throw stuff at us that don't belong to us, or don't belong to the school board. It actually belongs to them. But they want us to pay for it. The people are paying enough. It's their turn. If it's their problem, they pay for it.
Yes, sir.
God. Item 6, PPDR budget allocation and authority to advertise.
Good morning, Tyson Hackenberg with Hunt Giat and Associates. What's on the agenda for you guys to approve is the right to put out a request for proposals to demolish approximately 15 properties that have been authorized by FEMA through the private property debris removal program. The idea is to get this out on the street in a small enough package that possibly even locals can participate in the award, get these properties demolished but not execute the contract until FEMA has approved the funding. Any questions?
You gonna bid this, you gotta bid this out?
Yeah, unfortunately, with the FEMA funding, we'll have to put it out for bid.
Because we have some local contractors that are interested in these projects, so, we'll make them available, I guess. We could make that available to our
Yeah.
local. I don't know if we got, is there a way we could prioritize our locals over?
You can't prioritize, but we are required to advertise in our, the Cameron Pilot, which is our official journal. So we will have to advertise it, but we can do direct solicitation for bids as well. And we're not required, like most parishes, we're not required to do the electronic bidding, which is open to everyone nationwide. So the fact that we're able to just do the Cameron Pilot and direct solicitation will have a lot more involvement, and it'll be more competitive for our local firms to bid versus, someone, a nationwide company coming in.
Good.
Well, you're saying 15 properties, that's all of Cameron Parish?
Sir, 15 properties are the only 15 that have been approved to date from FEMA. We're still working on
We're doing batches.
Yeah, batches at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep the batches small. It should allow the
Sure.
local contractors to
Okay.
participate.
Look, last month we had like 30-something of them.
Yeah, we've got 150 that have been through the process that ultimately will get demolished and/or debris removed from. This is just the first batch of 15 that we'd like to run through fast.
Okay.
And what is the time frame on the advertising and the bids and 6 months?
No, sir. Since we have a small batch, we should be able to move this pretty quickly. Hunt Guyot's objective is to have the demolitions begin as early as September. It's a little aggressive because we want to make sure FEMA has absolutely approved the funding before we sign the contract, but it's technically possible we could be ready to go by then.
Okay.
Good deal.
Good. Any more
And
questions?
September 2nd is the meeting, so I can accept it then.
Will you explain to them also that you request an authority for your chief building code official to do the condemnation process as a part of the FEMA PPDR program?
Yes. We've been working with FEMA in a number of other jurisdictions in Louisiana, and we are convinced that the only way to ensure that we get reimbursements for this PPDR program is to go through the steps quickly of a normal condemnation process on each one of these homes. This won't necessarily result in a lien to the homeowners because we shouldn't lien something that we get reimbursed for, right? But it is unfortunate that we need to go through that process to establish to FEMA that we have the legal authority to do the demolitions. It's the safest route, and we've worked out a process, and we think we can keep the schedule moving.
How much effect is that gonna have on the homeowners themselves?
They shouldn't see a difference, right? Because the homeowners have entered and signed an ROE, basically saying, please demolish my property if you can get FEMA to pay for it. So we will have to provide a notice to the homeowner, like a condemnation notice, but since they've already signed the contract saying, please demolish my property, that notice should go pretty quickly.
Because I just want to make sure we explain enough to that homeowner.
Sure.
What's going on.
For sure. Yeah.
Some of them might be offended that we take over their property or something like that.
Yeah, it could be easily misunderstood, and we'll absolutely work with the homeowners to make sure they understand.
What exactly, is somebody gonna police what's being picked up, what was bidded on? That nothing extra gets picked up that may encounter another cost?
Yes, sir. Part of the work will require that we have a monitor on site that is not related to the contractor that's doing the work. So there'll be a third party watching the work, taking notes, and ensuring that only the work that was bid is done.
So this is gonna be just an outside individual y'all may procure, or
We'll
will
be
it be a
using
police,
this.
jury, parish?
Rostan's already
already
under
had that.
contract.
That's right.
Because we had monitors after the storm, and they was turning in full truckloads with only 2 yards sitting in them. So, I mean, monitors get taken care of also. All right.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank
Any
you
more
very
questions?
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyson.
Okay, we'll have a dedication, Mr. Darrell Williams Memorial Bench, by Mr. Scott Laverne.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Ranking at the top, Of the many traversities of 2020 was the loss of a Cameron Parish fellow employee, husband, father, friend to many, and an active member of the Cameron Lions Club. On October 19, 2020, Darrell Williams passed away unexpectedly. While trying to make this parish that he loved and that his home for his family whole again, amidst all the chaos and all the shortcomings from the two hurricanes just a couple months ago before. Darrell diligently would do anything for this parish and for everybody in the parish. He had a dream that he was going to take care of helping all the industry, the people of the parish, so that they can, their taxes would be lowered, and he never got to do this. Well, we want, between the Cameron Lions Club and Cameron LNG, they have donated a bench in his memory. Whenever y'all recess, Mr. German, would y'all please come outside so we can take a quick picture with the family of Darrell Williams, the Cameron Lions Club, and Cameron LNG representatives. Thank y'all, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Glad we could do that.
Courthouse Square beautification project update, Chelsea.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Put this down here. I am talking to y'all today on behalf of the Lions Club. In June, at the June police jury meeting, or during that day, we had a crew out here from a tree company planting some new oaks, because after some research on the oak trees and the properties that sustained hurricane damage from Audrey and Rita and Ike and then Laura and Delta, it seemed that the oak trees had a lot to do with the properties that survived. So we have a beautiful piece of property right here on Smith Circle with the courthouse and these buildings and the beautiful trees. So we wanted, as part of giving back to the parish, we used some Lion Club funds and voted on it. And we wanted some new trees to be planted. So we did that during the last police jury meeting. We also had some members of our Lions Club kind of add to the area out here. We beautified it with some landscaping and et cetera. And then after that meeting, we realized that, well, we have some more funds to use from Cameron LNG and other entities that have donated for beautification projects. And we saw the trees that are in this square that needed some pruning. So we got with the tree company again and asked them when the best time would be. We figured maybe after hurricane season it would be a better time. And they said, no, actually, if you kind of keep them up before anything hits, winds or whatever, that it would protect the property better. So they're out there again today, kind of just beautifying the area, and that's it. So I just wanted to let y'all know what was going on with that. This is not on the agenda today, but real quick, I just wanted to, on behalf of the police jury and the DA's office, we have an individual, Miss Jennifer Canick. I would like for her to come up. Jennifer is the daughter of the late Mary Jo and Ori Canick from down in Grand Chenier. Jennifer was a South Cameron grad back in '87. She competed in the Louisiana High School Rodeo Association and was a national qualifier. Then she went on to McNeese, where she was on the rodeo team there and qualified for national collegiate finals, etc. Jennifer hung her hat up to endure a career in occupational safety, and where she has worked the last several years. Well, within the last 2 or 3 years, the professional sport of rodeo has added some big-time money events for females, which had never happened before, so it's kind of historic. So Jennifer picked up her rope again and made it a goal for herself to make it to the world-renowned Cheyenne Frontier Days Rodeo. So that occurred last week. After the first round of 200 contestants, she advanced to the top 60, then again to the top 24, and she competed Sunday. It was on national television. She represented Cameron Parish from Grand Chenier, and it was a very huge event, televised and watched by very many people. So we just wanted to, on behalf of y'all and us, present her with this certificate and thank her for representing our parish so well. She ended up in the top 12, and it was a huge for our parish and in that sport. So thank you.
All kind of get together.
And y'all look so good with all your shirts on today. No backs. Okay. And make sure I see everybody. And
Pretty wide crowd.
And good smile. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.
Me and Butch and Curtis and, Kurt.
Did you get all that in that one picture? That was pretty wide. I'll
You
tell
know, there was one thing I wanted to bring out with Jennifer on her ride, that last ride she had. She had a great dismount. I saw it on Facebook. And she didn't get hurt.
Unexpected, very much enjoyed.
Okay, we want to talk about COVID leave. Dee Dee, you want to come up?
When we're prepared to talk in public. You passed a COVID leave that was interpreted as it would only cover if an employee was exposed by a fellow employee. And that may work in a place where you have offices and you can get away from the public. But I called each of y'all to ask you to please include those people like the library employees that are exposed to the public. With all of the summer reading programs, and we had Harvey Rabbit, which brought over 100 people into the library that day. Please try to include us in your COVID policy and take into consideration we are exposed to the public, not necessarily to just other employees. And that's all.
Yeah, I think our policy allows for COVID leave to be used in the case where COVID is brought to the workplace and affects other people.
Our policy, the way it was adopted, was that we are not granting COVID leave. The past 2 years, we gave every employee 80 hours of COVID leave. And it didn't matter if they were sick, if a family member was sick, if their kid had to quarantine, whatever COVID-related reason it was, they had 80 hours to use a year. And so this year, we decided not to ask the jury to grant that. And so at the last meeting, there was an instance where a department was closed because an employee came to work, worked for 2 hours, left sick, tested for COVID, and tested positive. And so the people that that employee worked with were all directly exposed closer than 6 feet for longer than 30 minutes. And so the supervisor made all the employees go home and quarantine as well. And they had to use their sick leave, just like everyone else. And so at the last meeting, what you guys decided to do, that if that was the case, if an employee came to work and at no fault of their own was exposed and sent home because of a coworker, that we would not charge them sick leave. We would just send them home, and they would not be charged any type of leave. But they are not using this quote-unquote COVID leave. They're just sent home and at no fault of their own. And that's how the policy currently stands. But just a few days ago, the CDC's looking at lifting the 6 foot. They're saying that the 6 foot restriction needs to be lifted for exposure as well. So, I think this administration and you, I think you got the policy right. COVID is here, it's here to stay, it's the flu, it's any type of illness, and you give employees somewhere between 1 and 3 weeks of sick leave per year to use in this in this instance. And most employees have 200, 300, 400 hours of sick leave accumulated right now. Only your new employees that were hired this year don't have that sort of accumulation. So, I think that while it's unfortunate that maybe someone from the library may think they got sick because they were working with the public, everyone works with the public. Our judge's office and DA employees, they have court twice a week. They're with the public. Our permitting department is constantly working with the public. The Harvey Rabbit Show was here in this office, in this meeting room with all of our employees. Everyone is exposed on a daily basis to some sort of illness, and that's why you give them sick leave, and you don't even require them to have to go to the doctor and get an absentee form, a doctor's excuse for missing. So I think that you have a very flexible and generous policy, and so right now, this policy was the recommendation of the staff. If you want to open it up and go back to the way it was prior years, then you need to change the policy. It's 40 hours, pick up an amount. Do you want to give people 40 hours of COVID leave to use at their discretion? Do you want to give them 80 hours? Whatever that is, we can change that policy.
We're already paying.
You already give
giving them
employees
everything
1
now
to
is
3
COVID.
weeks
There's
of
no
annual.
more cold, there's no more the flu, everything's
It's all
COVID.
COVID.
So, we're already giving the sick leave, and that's what it's for, it's
It's
to
sick
use
leave,
if you're
yes.
sick, so.
So what if people want to save it when they retire or something, you can keep carrying this on?
Sick leave, the only thing you can do with sick leave is when you retire, if you cash it in at the time that you retire, it counts as time served. But after you enter drop, you can't do anything with it. If you're just a normal employee that quits, if you get fired, if you are in drop and decide to go home after drop, your sick leave is not valuable. You can't give it to another employee. You can't get paid for it.
So you lose it.
You lose it, all of it.
Well, I'm just saying, when I was in here first time, Susie Farber come to work here, she wasn't working maybe a month or two, blew her knee out. Well, she didn't have no comp time, no sick leave time. Some of the employees give her some to make it through, but
Yeah.
she wasn't compensated for it through the parish,
My question to you is, and I think this is the question, is every employee that works for the parish receive the same hours?
Yes.
So library board, road crew, whatever, receives the same?
Yes, sir.
hours.
The policy, sick leave, if you work for less than a year, you get 1 week of sick leave. After you go, 3 years, you get, 5-year service, you get 3 weeks of sick leave.
No, that's vacation. Sick leave is a time.
No, but it's about 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's about 3 weeks.
So most
We have
have 3
tiered
weeks of sick
every
leave.
employee across the board, whether you are waterworks, if you're drainage board, if you're permitting, if you're judge, if you're, judge's office secretaries, DA secretaries, permitting, library. Everyone goes by the same policy, and our staff applies the policy fairly across the board. There's no picking and choosing which department gets to benefit from which policy. It is applied fairly across the board. Now, I think the misunderstanding is that it was exposed at work. But what your policy is, with the way it was adopted, is exposed at work by a coworker. And it was at no fault of their own. And I think that might be the misunderstanding. And look, it's up to you guys. If you want a policy that says if you're at work and you say you're exposed at work because you work with the public, then change the policy. But the way the policy is written right now and the policy you passed last month, it's only if you're exposed at work by a coworker. And now I really don't even know how that's gonna work. Because it's saying closer than 6 feet. CDC's taking that, lifting that.
Now
So
that we're not
if they
going to
lifted it,
box.
why we have a policy anyhow? If they're lifting the 6 feet distance.
They're lifting it this week. At the time you adopted the policy, exposure was closer than 6 feet.
We haven't addressed the 6 feet, lift of the 6
Right.
feet.
Yeah.
We haven't addressed that part. Didi, what is your question? So,
My question was, does it, how do you prove it was a coworker or it wasn't a coworker that exposed you?
Who was sick?
I mean, I just put in for COVID leave because I did test positive for COVID. I was at work that I got exposed. And we didn't get a copy of the policy until after I was told I couldn't apply for, I didn't apply for the COVID policy. And I'm okay with putting in for sick leave, as long as it's done the same across the board. That's all.
you're saying it is?
Yes, sir, we do not discriminate against any particular department.
But what DD is saying is if we're gonna do it, then
Do it,
there's no more policy. In other words, everybody's just gonna take their sick leave for it. Am I right, DD?
no, she
Or
wants COVID
everybody
leave.
gets the right to say that they got COVID at
I'm
the,
okay with putting it sick leave if everybody else is putting it sick leave. What I don't understand is how somebody's gonna say, I was exposed to a coworker or I was exposed to the general public.
And it's not that I'm sick because I was exposed. The policy was okay, for example, me and Caleb and Shane, we all work together. Kayla comes to work with COVID, comes to work, we work for 2 or 3 hours together, then she leaves and she goes and tests positive for COVID. And she calls and she says, Katie, I was with you and Shane, according to my doctor, y'all were exposed, y'all should quarantine. Then I'm going home and Shane's going home because of her. And why was it's not our fault. Why should we have to use our sick leave because Kayla came to work sick? And now we have to quarantine. So the policy was to protect Katie and Shane. It's not to protect Kayla. Kayla still has to use sick leave. She had COVID. She's using sick leave. So that's what the policy was to protect, was the Katies and the Shanes. But Kayla still had to use sick leave.
And that's why we set it up that way.
That's why we set it up that way.
We set it up that way because it wasn't fair to the innocent
Bystander that went
person
to
that come
work
to work with no problems.
and they have to use their leave.
And was never, it could be that they were never positive tested. But they had to go home for 5
Right.
days.
Now, if you want to change the policy to where it's everyone, then in that example, Kayla has COVID, Kayla gets COVID leave because she has COVID, I get to go home for 5 days with COVID leave, Shane gets to go home for 5 days with COVID leave. We all receive the same.
this is my deal. Everything from now on is gonna be COVID. When are we gonna end this? I think we pay for sick leave already. They're just gonna have to take the sick leave because a cold's gonna be a cold. COVID's gonna be a COVID, you know what I mean? Where's this gonna end? And if we wasn't paying sick leave, I can understand it, you know? I know we passed this deal to help, you know, some of our employees last time, but somewhere this has got to end.
Yeah, I agree. And what we did last month was just to protect the innocent workers that were sent home because.
I understand.
And
but-
they didn't even test positive.
But before, you know, I understand, but, you know, everything's always not perfect, kind of, but,
I know,
you know,
we-
but before,
we
when
strive
somebody
to
had the
make it
cold and they
happen.
come to work, well, somebody else might get it too. Well, they didn't get extra time, you know what I'm saying? They just got, so that's why we pay sick leave.
The only difference is the recommendation of the CDC to be quarantined, so it puts a timeline of 5 days. It's not like you got a cold, you can be home for 2 days. So there's a time limit that you're required to be quarantined 5 days. Used to be 10, now it's gonna back down to 5.
I just want to make
So
sure.
that's still
that-
in effect.
I just want to make sure that it's every employee
Exactly.
working for the parish, if this is the way it goes for everybody, the same way.
I think we need to send out more, better notifications of what the policy is exactly to all of our branches and all of our people and, you know.
But as a supervisor, when somebody comes in with a cold, I cannot make them go test.
What do you mean you cannot make them go test?
I can't make them go test. It's medically, I can't deal with them on a medical issue. I'm not a doctor. I can't make them leave and go test.
Well,
Can't prove they got COVID, in other words.
So they can stay there those days with their cough and whatnot. I can't make them go home and test.
You're talking about somebody that comes in the
I
library.
think you can.
I'm sitting right there, ask Tom. Tom, can she ask somebody to go get tested for COVID if they come in sick?
I think the question is, can she send an employee home because they're at work sick? And can she make them go home?
I would assume she could, but I mean.
I don't know why she couldn't.
You have a policy in place, unless you're gonna change it, I don't know what else you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I don't look to changing it, but her being the boss, she has a responsibility. If she got somebody coming in her establishment that's sick, she should have that authority.
Not anybody, an employee.
An employee, yes.
Not anybody, but not about the public. So an employee comes in suspected of COVID, I think the supervisor has a right to say, either go home or get tested or verify that you don't have COVID. That's the world we live in. I'm comfortable with that.
is that part of our policy?
That's case by case, department by department. You know, and I'm not asking my employees to go get tested. They have personal responsibility. If they feel like they have an issue, they can take care of themselves. And if they call in and said I was positive, and under your policy, whoever that employee was exposed to her co-employees, those co-employees have to quarantine for 5 days, and that's your policy. And those co-employees get the benefit of your policy, not the person that tested positive. I think that's a fair, I think you made the decision, it's fair to those innocent employees who just happen to be in the presence of a co-employee who is tested positive. And most of the time, I don't think any of our employees are coming to work knowing they have COVID. It just happens, they come to work.
Yeah.
And it happens. I think policy is fair, a lot of time is put into it, consideration, the staff made that recommendation. I don't know what else there's to talk about.
I've asked people to go testing, they told me no, so is there
Well, employee, not the public, but your employee.
an employee?
Tell you no, and you have the testers there at your facility, right? Ain't that what you told?
I don't think I
Doc's
can
got
make
something to
them
say.
test.
You can't make them test, but you can have them go home.
Okay, but she can tell them to go
Send them
home.
home.
So if they got sick leave, Tom, you brought up the thought, they got sick leave, why are we still have this in place?
It's to protect those who are forced to go home. That was,
But people are trying to use it,
no.
they're just trying to
It's
Word
only,
it
if
for
the
everybody.
person, so, in Katie's example, if Kayla tests positive after she leaves work, it's only then she calls back and says, Katie and Shane were exposed.
Right.
If she goes and it's negative, then nothing happens.
But it has to be an employee.
Now, if you don't want to protect Katie and Shane and give them that benefit of COVID leave and they have to take their own sick leave, again, that's a decision you made.
Right.
You made the decision to give somebody like Katie and Shane that benefit because they were exposed accidentally by a co-employee. So you're giving them that benefit. Again, if you don't want to give them that benefit,
I
maybe
think
just
we'll
take their
leave
own
it
sick
alone.
leave.
I don't see changing anything if it's the same for everybody.
The policy's the same for everybody.
Yeah.
Period.
And the clarification, you need to get, I think we need to get clarification in our policy on supervisors' discretionary measures for their employees. I'm not sure.
We will absolutely redraft the policy with the help of the DA's office to make sure that everything is in the policy perfectly clear.
Perfectly clear for the supervisors. All right, let's move on. All right.
yeah.
Thank
You had something to say, sir?
No,
Not
Doc-
you.
Doc did. Doc did.
Coming in here with your shorts
No,
on.
Doc.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you don't have to, or you can come to the Mac, whatever you want to do. Yeah, I know that.
one. Yeah, you need it.
For the record, Dr. Dupke. I would say from a medical perspective, as I understand this policy, it's medically appropriate. From the a quick background, what we're dealing with now is BA.5, the new variant, BA.5, Bravo Alpha 5. It is highly, highly contagious. It's what we call a 17. And just to briefly describe that, we have 17 healthy people in a room, 17 healthy people in a room, no disease. We send one sick person in there with a virus. Well, we determine how many people get sick. With influenza, for example, if we send one sick person with influenza into a room with 17, only one of those persons in that room will get sick. That's an infectious rate of 1. COVID first came out, it was 2. We were screaming, twice as infected. You send someone with original COVID into that room, only 2 people get infected. But with BA.5, you send that one person into that room with BA.5, all 17 will become infected. So that's how it has changed significantly. The good news is you will get sick, but not as sick as original COVID-19. It's not as fatal as COVID-19. The bad news is, for those of us that have been vaccinated, full vaccination now, 4 vaccinations, 2 vaccinations, 2 boosters. For those of us that have been vaccinated, doesn't make a difference. The virus is resistant to the vaccine, so our antibodies won't defend us. We have 2 medicines we can use. One is a monoclonal antibody, get by vein. The other is a medicine called Paxlovid. You may have heard of that. President Biden was on Paxlovid. It's a medicine, 2 medicines you take for 5 days. If you do get sick, you need to start that medicine within 5 days of being sick. The issue with the medicine, though, if you do take it, there's a 40% chance you'll get sick again after you stop, 3 days after stopping it. President Biden, as you recall, got reinfected. It was a result of the Paxlovid. We don't know why that's happening. But in terms of what transpired with the department sending everyone home, it's medically appropriate. The AMA has some objections to the 5-day rule. So do I. I think 5 days is not short enough. We know 20% of patients during those 5 days may come back to work after 5 days being sick. But a 5-day is what the CDC states. And by the way, the CDC has put Cameron Parish in the high-risk category now for infection. So we are in the red zone. But as I understand the policy, I think it's appropriate. Any questions I'd be glad to answer from a medical perspective?
Where do you get your information from?
Say again?
Where you got your information from?
The newspapers. Just the medical literature that comes out.
Okay.
Yeah. And the only group that's resistant to this, apparently lawyers, because when the virus bites the lawyer, the virus dies. We haven't figured it out yet, but we're working on it.
Hey, Tom, you better get back in here.
What did he say?
Or people that smoke are resistant.
I wasn't paying attention, I was listening.
Hey, Curtis,
Lawyers can get affected.
I got some questions for that little young man in shorts. Call him up here.
We ain't got that much time.
Yeah, it's very important. Yes.
Off the list, we have a request from Mr. Boryak to step up to the mic. Yes, sir.
Update us on some stuff.
to take a picture. No, to the mic.
You don't need a mic.
Picture.
Yeah, he needs a mic.
Morning, gentlemen. Yes, sir, Mr. Quinn.
Very.
So, as of today, we still have bids due for 2 new ferries. The bid packets have been out for 2 months now, and so the date is August 11th. We know how things can change with dates. We've already lived that with courthouse rehab and other projects, but the fact of the matter is we made it to about a week before the deadline without an extended bid. The TIFIA loan is in place. All the funding, the capital outlay money, we have $5 million in cash, that's already there. We have the other $14 million that is still in priority, that could be moved to a cash line of credit at a subsequent bond commission meeting. So the funding is in place, the bids are out. The last I was told, there were 3 firms that were interested. And so that's the new ferry. Cameron Ferry number 2, they're still trying to work through some issues with the contractor on all the electrical components. That's just an ongoing problem. Every time they think they've got it troubleshot, something else happens. I mean, The captains were trained, the Coast Guard's been out. I think, the contractor's been in there going
That's
on
what I
4 or
heard.
5 months now. And it's just, I can't tell you.
That's where it was electrical issues and
Yes, sir.
stuff and
They had
controls.
changed all those motors out, and we got problems.
Hopefully we get it better by,
We've had them for a while, we still got them. Yes, sir.
We ought to rent a tug, tie it onto the old ferry, and move it back and forth.
While I'm up here,
Yeah.
because I'm a glutton for
See
punishment.
what, I told you you started something.
It's okay.
5 minutes. She timed me. The pontoon bridge, we've, just as soon, I'll throw that out there before I get asked. We still have interruptions, the Black Bayou Bridge or the Grand Lake Pontoon Bridge. Going back to the issue of, Mr. Butch and I had this discussion last November. That's antiquated infrastructure. It's been inundated, completely under salt water a few times now. The fact of the matter is, outside of, unscheduled maintenance, we have bids that have already been awarded, and it's currently being fabricated. New apron motors for both pontoon bridges. We were told by the shops that would take about 5 to 6 months to get them produced. Everybody knows supply issues from top to bottom across the country. But that would be the next scheduled major repair, which should cut back on some of the interim shutdowns that we've seen. In the meantime, we had discussions with the DOTD District Administrator, Don Duberville, who, by the way, is retiring. We are not sure who that new administrator will be yet. But we had meetings with him at the end of July, and we went through long-term plans for both bridges, for both pontoon bridges. As we've had in the past, in this body in June, I gave you the update that there was $10 million that was set aside in Highway Priority Program money for major rehab, solely for the Grand Lake Pontoon Bridge. What I've asked staff to do is to give us, you as a jury, staff, and myself, an updated packet. I want them to look at the annual operations and maintenance costs of breakdowns of the infrastructure and of employee staff time. I want to see what we're spending every single year on those structures. Because if we have $10 million in cash sitting there that's going to be available to us in 2024, and we're spending $2 to $5 million a year in improvements or in staff time, so forth and so on, we need to look at what we're going to do long term. We know that there was a proposal in the past for a fixed span bridge. We know that died in the 80s. But the fact of the matter is, I think times have changed. I think it's important for us to identify those alternatives. May never move in those directions. Maybe there's ways to have those rehab projects last a little bit longer moving forward, new technologies, so forth and so on. But I think it's important for us, it's our job to identify the alternatives and work with the general public to see, is it time to consider something different or not? I have no problem working through that process. They are developing all that information for us. So we should have that, I would think, by your September police jury meeting. So that data should be ready to go. You do have a couple items on a much lighter note and a positive note. You have a couple items on the agenda for the $125,000 for the pumps here on Marshall Street, and the second round of $125,000 for the North Cameron EOC. The cooperative endeavor agreements are on the agenda. So that'll get you going with the capital outlay projects that we've worked on through your direction the last 2 years, along with the $8 million CPRA money, although I didn't see that on the agenda. So they should be sending y'all something shortly on those on the $8 million breakwater extension project.
Yeah, look, when you get them fixed span bridges designed, make sure they build them about 6 foot taller than the design is, because the Corps never gonna come dredge in. Of course, they can keep raising the water.
I have no notes, no suggestions on dredging the intercoastal, maintenance in the intercoastal.
Well, they're gonna
That's a
keep
federal
raising the
issue.
water.
I would recommend that you contact Congressman Higgins or Senator Cassidy or Senator Kennedy.
That's crazy, crazy. 30 years they ain't dredged that, did maintenance on that intercoastal.
But I'll tell you what, Mr. Falk, your staff is on it. I think they've identified some funding sources to work through that process. You've got the attention of the Attorney General's office, the CPRA, and the Corps. I think you're moving in the right direction. Yes, sir. Last but not least, only because I know Curtis wants to hear about it. You know, I filed that LIGA bill that we've already talked about twice now. Not going to beat a dead horse, not going to go back into all those issues, but I'm sure you've seen the reports that the state has now been asked to borrow $600 million to pay off LIGA claims. So we can't fix the issue that we have moving forward. We're going to leave everything the way it is, but we're going to borrow $600 million to address some of these claims. And at the same time, the insurance commissioner was quoted as asking the Senate president, the speaker, and the governor, all three, at a meeting in New Orleans, to set aside state cash money to incentivize more insurance companies to come back and start writing. But we're still not going to address the issues that we've already identified and already filed legislation to try to fix. So we're just going to, put that Band-Aid on that open wound and move on.
But with you fighting it, like already had $600 million. They already had that $600 million.
They had 300 that was sitting there since 2020.
And
Yes,
now
sir.
they want to bond out for 600 more.
And in statute, you're allowed to assess an annual fee on insurance companies. That annual fee was not assessed for 15 years.
What did they do with the 300 million?
The 300 million was used to start paying those individuals, which last I was told, we still have in this parish over 100 outstanding claims that went through LIGA. And again, LIGA is quasi-governmental, it's a state entity. They have complete, what's the word, Mr. Mudd? Indemnity. You can't sue them. Is that the right word?
They ain't sent my money when they canceled my policy.
Immunity, there you go. It was with an I and ended in a Y. Hot dog, that was close.
Well, they'd all been, you would have all been proud of Mr. Boryak, because he sat in front of all them people that he thought he had their votes, and then they turned on him real quick, but he did a fine job up there. And when it was over with, he let them have it good.
Look,
So,
you're not gonna win them all, but it's how you fight the battle that matters.
yeah, and he did a great job. We was proud of him.
Y'all stop that, his head's getting big over there.
Well,
Time to cut him off, getting swelling up.
All right, so we're gonna move on.
Thank you, Ryan.
Last but not least, I'd like to thank Mr. Boryak for being at Hackberry's ribbon cutting and making a loud speech, and the Hackberry Road crew and Shane. Thank you very much for what y'all did. Appreciate you. Now, right after this is when we're gonna do the dedication, or are we gonna go into executive session first?
We'll go to do the dedication, won't take us a second.
Okay.
We just need to get y'all to take a picture.
Review agenda.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure.
Adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
we'll do that.
All right. So you review agenda, which should already be done.
hey, I got a minor thing on, number 7A. The gentleman's name is Griffith, not Griffin. I don't know if that makes a difference when we legally, so.
We
Yeah.
okay.
Anybody have anything else?
Mr. President, we're going to remove item 13, the workforce development notified me yesterday that they're not ready to have this signed. They have
Okay.
some changes.
Item 13,
Yes, sir.
You got an add-on too. Do you have an add-on?
We're going to approve that add-on after the finance meeting for the allocation for the Big Bird Ball.
Oh, okay.
All I got.
anything else? This meeting is adjourned.